Well, Star Wars month is in full swing, so let's begin with our first movie review. But what is there to actually say about Star Wars that hasn't been said already? Star Wars was one of the biggest pop culture cornerstones in the filmmaking industry, and at its peak, bringing in billions of dollars with every installment. Or at least it used to, before the rat house got a hold of it and ran the franchise into the ground like they do most properties. But we're going back to the original trilogy of films that are beloved by people the world over. But some of you may not know there were spin-offs to that trilogy. You know that scene that everybody made fun of in Return of the Jedi? They made movies out of that. And I'm not shitting you, they made 2 films based on the Ewoks, Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor. However, here in the US, they were TV-made movies, with some showings in theaters overseas and different. Now, even though these are Ewok movies, most of them focus on human characters. A family trapped on the forest moon of Endor, with the kids being the protagonist for each film. Mace, the oldest brother, is the lead in Caravan of Courage, and Sindel, the little girl, being the lead for Battle of Endor. Which seems appropriate. The target audience for these films was geared toward children. And because this is the first bit of acting either of these kids have done, I'm not going to go too hard on it. It's understandable, they're fairly bad for the most part.
Food, eat. Food. Eat, food.
With the brother being particularly nerve-grinding. Sadly, everyone will become all too familiar with in Caravan of Courage, our first, which by the title, if you couldn't tell, is an adventure film. The goal being for the 2 children to find their missing parents who were taken by the giant Gorok. This film is unique for having a particular voiceover done by Burl Ives, the snowman from Rudolph, to help narrate and explain parts of the film that would be lost in translation since the Ewoks speak their own language. He doesn't elaborate on everything, however. A lot of it is left up to interpretation, but there are spots where he is sorely needed.
What are these things?
From this point, I'll be going into spoilers. It's an Ewok movie, so I don't think anybody would really care, but here's your one and only warning. The film begins with the parents out looking for their lost children after the crash to be discovered by Bigfoot, disappearing and cutting to black, and the title of the movie. And thus enters the infamous space teddy bears themselves. Deej, the leader of this particular village, is out paragliding looking for his 2 sons when he comes across the crashed ship. After locating his sons and breaking up their fight, they go to investigate the tin can and find a fairly sick girl named Sindel. Deej, of course, choosing not to stab the sick kid, instead tries to communicate and help her. In comes the worst actor of the movie, barreling in and blasting and yelling, demanding they let his sister go. To which the Ewoks answer by knocking him down and beating the shit out of him and subduing him. Taking them both back to the village. When the group makes it back to Deej's hut, Sindel is introduced to Wicket, played by Warwick Davis, putting his first contact skills he learned back in Return of the Jedi to good use, which bridges the continuity with the original trilogy in these films fairly nicely, showing a growth in Wicket, whereas in the previous film he was spear in hand ready to stab anything that looked at him wrong. Here he's repeating what Leia did in episode 6, bringing Sindel gifts and trying to communicate. The next 15 minutes of the film is spent trying to nurse Sindel back to health, and Mace making an ass of himself by falling for the oldest trick in the book. Ugh. If it isn't obvious enough, I really don't like this character that much. Not because he made the mistake, but that he keeps making the same damn mistake over and over, being one of the biggest lemmings in Star Wars history, which will come to a head in a moment. Once Sindel is recovered, Mace comes up with the bright idea of taking Sindel back to the crashed ship to wait for their parents, traveling at night while the Ewoks are asleep. The tree monster not being enough of an omen to stay with the friendly natives that look like Care Bears? No, you choose to go into the woods on an alien world where you're not at the top of a food chain. Might as well scream, "Supper is served!" And like clockwork, the two are set upon by a large dog monster. Mace shoots at it repeatedly, but has a knack for hitting nothing but trees. The monster continues its pursuit, ultimately chasing them into a hollowed out tree, where they wait it out for the rest of the night. Morning comes and Deej and his family have to yet again save the kids, trying their best to kill Ugzilla here, only bringing the critter down after Wicket hits it with a blow dart, revealing that it is in possession of their mom's life monitor, who was given the bracelet as a means to track down more humans, meaning that it's a type of hunting dog that Gorak uses to track down prey. Later they go to the village elder, who informs them that the giant Gorak is responsible for this, using a type of shaman ceremony to do so. Soon after, the caravan is assembled to perform a rescue, meeting more Ewoks brave enough to help along the way, assembling a caravan of courage. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But before the journey begins, each person is given an item that will be used once and never seen again, starting off with a magic walking stick for Wicket. Yeah, I said a magic walking stick. Sindel is given a candle. I wonder if it's scented. 3 of the other Ewoks, Deej and his 2 sons, are given feathered headdresses tied to their history, while Mace is given a smooth rock that he believes is useless and chucks it. But Wicket wisely picks it up and saves it for later. The 2 remaining items are being reserved for future party members, a tooth and a crystal. Thus, the journey begins, and for a large part, it's kind of boring. Stuff happens, but in a rather dull way. For example, the first new recruit of their journey almost drops a tree on the caravan. Mace is understandably pissed that his sister almost got crushed, but after the one outburst is not brought up again. And Deej just doesn't seem to give a shit. He doesn't even bat an eye that 3 of his sons were almost crushed into paste by a giant redwood tree. To try to mellow things out, the woodman has an axe throwing competition with Mace, and then decides to join because, let's face it, the script said so. Later they come across a magic user who decides to screw with Mace by turning the crystal into a lizard, but then changes into a mouse when Sindel picks it up, and gives her best sad puppy dog eyes, convincing the shaman to join. When they stop for water, Mace decides to do what Mace does, and gets himself into a bit of trouble, poking his reflection in an ominous pool of water, transporting him below the surface, unable to swim out. The gang tries to fish him out, but everything they throw in gets sucked in underneath the surface just like Mace. In comes Wicket with that magic walking stick, pulling him out of the water trap with his magic walking stick disappearing out of Wicket's inventory for the rest of the film. Sounds like a Resident Evil script to me. Children being in peril doesn't end there. Oh no, next is Sindel's turn. While Wicket is playing in a tree, he turns a branch loose, making a large noise, spooking the horse Sindel was riding in, and giving the woodsman a reason to actually be in the movie, catching up to it and gaining control over it. Smash cut to next scene. This is actually coming more apparent. I'm sure a lot of you have already noticed that a lot of these scenes were designed around commercial breaks. Kind of makes sense for a TV movie, but since there are no commercial breaks, it feels more like padding than anything else, with the character development being sparsely placed throughout the movie. Oh well, on with the story. With the fortress of the giant in sight, they make camp for the night, discussing the lack of food and the long trek back, which doesn't come into play at all anywhere else in the film. With that thrown out there, it's never discussed ever again, being kind of sideswiped by a large group of fireflies setting out on the camp, exciting everyone except for one. I'm kind of feeling this is the proxy for the audience. This does seem kind of familiar.
I'm gonna kill him. Let's go back to bed.
Nah, I'm imagining things. Sindel brings out her candle, and the shaman directs her to put the candle on the ground, acting as sort of a bug zapper of sorts. I could use one of those in the summertime. Mosquitoes out here are terrible. However, there is one survivor. We get a closer look at what the firefly creatures were, revealing a Tinkerbell-like fairy. So an 8-year-old just committed fairy genocide. I think there's a dude with a hook in Neverland that could use that candle. Oh well. The next day, the group arrives at Gorak's lair, unable to find a door or even a porch light. The shaman asks Mace for the rock he was given at the beginning of the journey. Mace admits that he threw it away and starts getting sideways glances from the rest of the party. But Wicket's out to save his ass again by giving him the rock that he picked out after he threw it away, bailing Mace out of trouble again. Mace shakes the rock, realizing there's something inside. Then he throws it down on the ground, popping out an arrowhead that slides to the weak spot in the wall, being blocked by a giant boulder. Mace, remembering his blaster, shows an affinity for only being able to hit stationary objects. They go into the cave, deciding to split up, leaving the youngest at the entrance with everyone else progressing forward. The rescue team comes across a rather familiar chasm. Nah, I'm still imagining things. They use the spiderweb to get across the gap, being attacked by the worst effect in the movie. Large in part, the spider design is different. It's okay, but time hasn't done this spider any favors. On the copy of the DVD that I watched, those strings stick out like sore thumbs. And also the wide angle makes it very apparent that this spider is just being waved at everybody. They end up cutting the web loose and dropping the spider in the chasm, killing it permanently. Or did it? Sometimes an Ewok just has to shank a bitch. Moving on, they climb up the stairs to see Grouch sitting down for his evening meal, when they see Mace's parents up in a sort of bird cage, or human cage I guess you would call it. One of the Ewoks decides to get the attention of the giant, luring him away so the group can stage a rescue. But Ewoks only hold people's attention for so long before they get bored. So the giant comes back and discovers what's going on, trying to catch everybody in the process. With the help of the Disney trademark character, they ward him off, the giant flailing wildly, bringing the cave down on their heads, killing the woodsman. Mace says his goodbyes and makes his way down the staircase with everybody else, with Grouch in hot pursuit. There's a lot of damn stairs here. It takes this Kiss reject forever to get down these stairs, though it only took seconds for everybody else. Don't think about it. Toward the bottom, they sit and wait with the trap set so they can send Grouch over the ledge, like they did the spider. The trap fails, thus the shaman has to come in and put his 2 cents in. That doesn't really work. So Mama has to come in and show him how it's done. She sends this giant flying into the abyss, never to be seen again.
We're coming.
This movie loves repeating plot points. Ultimately, Mace finally steps up and hits something moving with the woodsman's axe, bringing the giant into the abyss to its doom. I guess that axe throwing competition came into play after all. The family is reunited, Mace releases the fairy creature, and the movie ends with the Ewok celebration. No yub here, just regular celebration. Still kind of corny though. And that was Caravan of Courage. It wasn't good, but it could have been a whole lot worse. A certain Variety holiday special comes to mind. There are good aspects of the film. Most of the matte paintings look fairly impressive. The effects, with a few exceptions, look good for a TV movie. Plus, the introduction of other elements like magic and stuff like that gives this film a little bit more to work with. I mean, you can't bust out the Force and pop a lightsaber to get your movie across. Looking at you, Disney. But the biggest Achilles heel this movie has is in fact written around the commercial break. The whole middle of this film feels like padding, with dead spots for holding places for commercials, making the opening and climax being the most intriguing. The story centered around Mace makes sense for a coming-of-age tale, learning to trust others, but it's ultimately undone with him constantly having to repeat his life lesson just to pad out the movie. But everything that is learned here will become irrelevant in the next film, Battle for Endor, which I will say is the preferred of the two. Even as a kid, I really didn't click with this movie, needing more blaster bolts flying than whimsical fairy crap. Well, Star Wars month is still in full swing, and tune in next time for the last installment of the Ewok films, Battle for Endor. Please like, comment, subscribe. Y'all take care. Oh, by the way, this Ewok right here, that's Tony Cox. A nice little bit of trivia I thought y'all'd like.